This is Amy Krause interviewing Emma Foess at her house, sponsored by Chesaning High School, Honors English class, sophomore, on January 4th, 1989. Alright, I'm doing my interview is on laundry chemicals.
What?
On laundry chemicals?
Yes.
That you might have used or your mother might have used when she was younger. Okay, my first question is, what was a typical laundry day like? Like the day that you did the wash? Like, how did you do it? Do your laundry? On,
I mean, they used to make soap.
No, what was a typical laundry day? The day you did the washing, what did you do? What was a typical day?
Well, you scrubbed it on the board when I was younger.
Okay, you brought in the wash boiler, you filled it with water.
Yes, we
Okay.
put in a bar of soap in the wash boiler, and well, sometimes they add little boards to make it whiter, and then you rubbed your clothes on a washboard. Or, yes, they did have makeshifts of washing machines that you turned a crank or you pulled a lever forward and back, but most of the time you scrubbed it on the board, and then, like the towels and that, you'd boil them in that water, and then rinse them. After you rubbed them on the board, you'd boil them, and then you'd rinse them. And of course, naturally, hang them out outside. That was the only place, that we had no way to dry them any other way. Regardless of how cold it was, you dried your clothes outside. And that was about an all-day's job, what I mean? By the time you rub it all, and then you had if you had a wringer, all right, you'd turn the crank and put them through the wringer, and if you didn't, you run them out by hand. So much different than today.
yeah, very much different. Okay, what types of chemicals, did you use to wash? Like the soap, what kind of soap did you
Well,
use?
and first, of course, most people used a homemade soap, or one that the man used to gather up. He'd save the wood ashes for him, the good clean wood ashes, and then he would take it, gather it up, and take it home and make make soap out of it. They didn't have too many other chemicals to add. There was no such a thing as any detergents or anything like that. It was just, as I say, you dissolved your soap in your boiler of water
Okay.
on the stove.
The ashes he made lye out of, and to
Yeah.
that was added
Yeah,
other
that's right.
things.
You didn't use the ashes to make the soap. It was the lye.
Okay. Okay.
The lye, we made our own lye, and when I was first here. That we had a barrel that was up on a standard, and you'd put in your clean wood ashes in there when the barrel was full, and they had a little openings in the bottom, little holes in the bottom of it, and then your container underneath, and you poured water on there, and when it got down through, it was lye, and that's what you used to make it lye. And well, people saved their meat frying and things that they didn't use, lard nut that they didn't use, and that's mixed it with this lye is what made the soap.
That makes sense. Okay, what different types of soaps did you make? I mean, you had laundry soaps, but for washing dishes or something. What kind of soap would you use for that? Would you use the same thing?
We'd use that kind for washing dishes. We didn't use it as a hand soap that you bought, but we used the same kind for washing dishes as you did for laundry soap.
Okay. Okay. What ways can you recall that you or your mother used to remove stains? Were there any turpentine or anything like that you used?
Turpentine is what they used to remove stains from wool clothes.
Wool clothes?
From wool clothes, that was what the main thing to use to remove the stains from wool clothes. Other clothes, all you did was put on more soap and rubbed it.
Okay. How about ink stains? Was that the same thing, just soap in water?
That you didn't get out very easy.
No?
That was very hard. You might lighten it, you know what I mean, change the color a little bit, but it was very, very hard to get out.
Like in bleaching, like linens and stuff that had been yellowed, how did you handle that? Bleaching linens? Or anything that had been yellowed? Was there a way to do that?
Well, there wasn't, in earlier time, there really wasn't any chemicals that you buy. Like I said, you just merely make your soap stronger, you know, and wash it in stronger soap to change, you know, to get out all the, well, like fruit stains and vegetable stains and things like that.
Did boiling take it out?
Yeah, boiling would take out some too.
Boiling?
As I say, and then they'd add some borax to it, powdered borax, B-O-R-A-X, powdered borax.
Okay, what was that exactly? Borax?
The borax,
Yeah. What?
it was a powder that you would buy.
Okay. How about like, okay, if you had colored goods, how could you prevent the colors from like running? Like, did you wash like certain colors separate, like you would today? Except, how did you handle that? I mean, like, did you have to like dump out your water when you were done washing something so it wouldn't stain everything else?
For colors?
Yeah.
Well, for natural, you washed your colors separate. You know, not with your white, you washed your colors. And they used vinegar in the water to set colors. Because the colors were not so good. They faded, you know, quite easily. But they used vinegar in water and soaked their colors in that to set the color so that they didn't fade out as fast.
Okay. Was there anything else that they used besides vinegar?
No, nothing that I would know of.
Okay. Okay. How did you starch things?
Starch?
Yeah.
Well, in the beginning they used flour. Just ordinary flour, and put boiling water, or moistened it and then put boiling water on it, and they used that as a starch. Until then finally Argo starch came on the market, and then of course everybody used that.
Okay. Okay, if you were cleaning like a really fine fabric like silk, how would you handle that?
Well, they used that, but as I said, you just use your soap more mild, more sparingly.
Yeah.
They had no special, in the beginning. After a while, of course, then there was soap powders came on the market, and like, you know, Lux and some of those. But before that, why, you just was more careful with it and didn't use as strong, because the soap that was made with the lye is quite strong.
You probably didn't have any silk, huh?
Huh?
You probably didn't have any silk.
No, we didn't have any soap. That's true.
All right.
And the silks, the first silks were not washable.
Not all?
No.
Oh, goodness. Okay. How about ironing? How did you handle ironing?
Well, the irons, then we had what they call the side irons, and you'd heat them on your stove, you know, and you'd iron with them until they got cool, and have set them back on the stove. You'd have a whole bunch of them on the stove, so that you'd keep changing them, you know. And of course, you had to watch out if they were a little bit too hot. Why, that was bad too.
How did you handle ironing day? Was there a separate day for ironing?
What's that?
How did you handle ironing day? Like, was it the day after you washed? Did you have like an ironing day? A set day?
Did you do your ironing the next day, usually?
Yes.
Really?
Well, you dampened it the same as you do, you know, most of them do now, and then we ironed it the next day.
Did it take all day?
Well, yes, if you had a family and had a big work, it did take off. Had an ironing board that you laid one end on the table and the other end on the chair. They didn't have standards like, you know, like we do now and like they have had for quite a few years. But in the beginning, that was the kind that everybody had. Just a board that was covered, you know, with a material. And like I say, you put one end on the chair and the other one on the table.
Okay. How about buttermilk? Did you ever use buttermilk for anything?
Well, buttermilk will bleach too, yes, it will. Or it will take out stains.
Okay, were there any chemicals, like besides turpentine, that were ever used for special things? Like, well, I wouldn't know, but, kerosene, yeah. Did you ever use, like, kerosene or anything to get stuff out? Or I read about gasoline. Did people actually use
Well,
gasoline?
people used to rinse in gasoline in later years, and they used to, yes, they used to use kerosene too to take out some, like oil or, yes, like oil or for like they
Grease?
get on their clothes when working on farm stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kerosene would take out some oils out of those, and then you'd have to wash it after that.
Would gasoline be similar to the dry cleaning fluids?
It would be,
I mean, was it used similarly?
yeah, it was. They used to say you wash it in gasoline, and then and then you couldn't wash it after that. I mean, you didn't, because that was the materials that didn't wash. Because there used to be more materials that you couldn't wash, than there is today.
All right. How about mildew? Like, how did you get mildew out of things?
Well, now, I was going to say, buttermilk or sour milk will take out mildew.
Was there anything else? Like, what process did you have to use to get it out?
Well, you just dampen it with that and then leave it lay, and if it didn't take it out the first time, you'd put on some more.
Okay. Are there any, like, tested, tried and true methods of washing or removing stains that you still would use today at all?
What did
You use any of those methods today? Do you still use any of those?
No,
No.
because you get stain remover. Everybody
Yeah.
you can get that, so you just don't use them anymore.
Okay.
They did have dry cleaners back how many years ago?
Oh, they had them a long time ago, because your wool clothes, were not washable. If they did, you had to be very, very careful in washing wools because it would shrink so. And so there's been dry cleaners as long as I can remember. And that's how you had your winter coats and, your wool dresses and things, because as I said, they didn't wash. You had to be very careful because they would shrink so much if you didn't get them washed, or, if you try to wash them.
Okay.
Ivory soap was one of the first ones too. And what that one we talked about. Oh, Gold Dust Twins, that was a soap. That was one of the first powders that came out. The Gold Dust Twins, the box had two little colored children on it. And that was one of the first ones came out. And that was then used for finer materials, when that first came out. And then naturally they just keep coming with better ones all the time. That was one of the first ones that I can remember that came on the market.
Is lye soap really, really harsh? Is that a strong, harsh soap?
Is lye soap harsh? Is it strong? Is it?
Yeah, it is strong. It cleans well, you know what I mean? It cleans your clothes and good. And they used to use it a lot, because years ago everybody had a wood floor, in your kitchen and like that. And so they used to use it, to scrub the floor with a scrub brush and that kind of soap.
What were your hands like? What were your hands like at the end of a wash day?
Well, it wasn't too bad, really.
You were acclimated to it,
Yeah,
huh?
I guess that was it. From younger on, you grew up with it.
Yeah. And I have another question. You mentioned buttermilk is a good bleach. How did you do that? Did you just pour a lot of buttermilk in a vat, or
I just took the buttermilk and moistened that where the stain was or whatever, you know, what you wanted to bleach, or the whole material. You'd soak it in the buttermilk. Because you see, buttermilk has an acid in it, and so that would do the bleaching.
But did you soak things in buttermilk? Like the tub of water would have buttermilk in it, you'd soak things in it? Or?
Well, usually, you know, you didn't have anything, and so I usually soaked it in a dishpan or something like that.
And then another question, what about disinfectants? Like a sick room in a home, if someone had a contagious disease, I remember hearing that people use disinfectants. Do you know
Everything
what they
was
would...
carbolic acid.
Carbolic acid. And would that have been put in the wash water?
Yeah, you didn't have to use an awful lot. It was strong with carbolic acid, but the odor of it, it would stay so in them. It wasn't too long. Well, I say too long, but after a while, of course, naturally they come with others. But that's what you used to use as a disinfectant, was carbolic acid.
Is that a strong acid?
Well,
I don't know what it's...
Yes, you'd only use a few drops, you know what I mean. You wouldn't use very much. You just put a few drops of it in a water, or you know, to use it to wash or the material or the bedding and things like that. You'd have to use very much.
Is it stronger than chlorine bleach today?
Oh yes, and that is. It would be more poisonous.
Yeah.
I don't know about. I don't think it would burn anymore, but it does. A carbolic burn is bad for your hands and that. But you'd only use a few drops.
I bet.
You always use bluing in the rinse water, or the white
Oh,
clothes.
that's right. Used to buy bluing.
Little boy bluing, wasn't it?
That little boy bluing. She was always around when we was working, so she remembers a lot of it too. Scouring powders for the scour things, you know, whether it was the Bon Ami and Old Dutch Cleanser. You probably remember those too. And Fell's Neck, the soap, though, has been out a long, long time too. And that has some, like gasoline or something in it, you know, the smell of it, you know.
It has naphtha in it. People's Home Library. It has everything from a doctor book to see, we looked the other day, 1915. So,
You know, when they use some of those chemicals, like carbolic acid, there must have been fumes. They would have had to do that outside, wouldn't they?
No, they didn't, because like I said, they used it for if in sickness, you know, like to disinfect the room. They would put it and have some in something, but as I said, they used but very little. They used it by the drop because it was a poison of it. It wasn't, you know, that otherwise, but it was poisonous to people, very poisonous, and so then that's what they used for. Now they use things like that for, you know, but they have a pleasant odor, not, you know, not as strong.
These kinds of books are so interesting.
I don't know what to look at. Miscellaneous household. Yeah, hogs, poultry.
Oh my goodness, look at this.
You could clean that. Oh, everybody wore a hat. If you notice, you see pictures of years ago, you know, everybody wore a hat no matter where they went.
And what did you say you cleaned them with?
What's that?
What did you say you cleaned them with?
You use turpentine to get the, like the oil from the hair, you know, that gets on around the edge of that. she used turpentine to clean it.
To cut that.
If it was straw, why you used soap. You know, soap but sparingly, you know, just enough so that, you know, that you could wash it off.
Some liniment, so I was looking.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. It's interesting.
And you wonder we can't find it, huh?
Yeah. Amy's always interested in liniments. She likes animals.
Those are for humans, aren't they?
Oh, were they?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But if you had a wash machine, it was fine. If you didn't, you done that same way. You just rubbed it by hand, and most everybody did have a hand wringer. You know that you had to turn them by hand. You know, of course it was hard work with a comforter, but that was the way you washed it, just like you did anything else. You rubbed it on the board, take it and rub it a little ways, and then move it on a little ways. And it took a long time to wash one.
Now here's a recipe for a washing fluid. It's 1 box of lye and 5 cents worth of borax.
Yeah.
And salts of tartar and dry ammonia. Dissolve in 2 gallons of hot water. Take off fire before putting in ammonia. To be used in boiling suds.
Do you think things were cleaner back then?
Well,
I think maybe they were.
I don't think so. People were. They didn't worry so much about sanitary because how would you do it? You know what I mean? You just had it. Now you didn't wash your comforters every year like you do your blankets and things now. You know, you just washed them. You know, as it really was necessary. You hung them out on the line and aired them out.
Yeah.
Whenever you clean house, you know, your lines were all full of blankets and quilts and things, you know, that you air them, but you wouldn't wash them every year.
Orange juice is fun to be a good polish for patent leather.
The carpet, you used to put the cabbage on it?
Oh yeah, when you used to have these carpets, you know, too, that you couldn't wash, you know, because they would fade or, you know, the colors would run. My mother-in-law used to take cabbage and cut it up fine and sprinkle it on the all over the carpet, then sweep it up, and you'd be surprised how that would clean that carpet.
I've never thought.
Much worse, you know, they would smoke so easy. And you didn't get your wick trimmed just right, you know. I had to smoke on one corner and wash your lamp chimneys every day.
What did you use to wash them?
Homemade soap.
Lye soap.
What did I ask? It says here about taking away the bad smell of clothing to wrap it in lightly and bury it in the ground. Do you remember doing that?
I can't remember if we do, but I know that people did. Because they're one of the wild animals that are around, you know, and that smell you can't get out, and I don't know, but you can putting and burying them in the ground.
From skunks. Yeah.
Or this would mean now, like sometimes if you have a wool or that kind of clothing stored for a while, it's very hard to get the odor out of wools, and that was what people would do. But they would bury it in a sand, you know, that wouldn't be moist. Sand is, you know, if you know what sand is, it's soft. You know,
And dry, it wouldn't
dry,
stick to
and
it.
wouldn't stick like other material or other dirt.
That's interesting. I never heard of doing that.
Or anything like that. The only way you knew or found out about these is to be reading them somewhere So there was always a lot of those kind of books, for sale, to tell you, like this is really a home library, the book, it has so many things in it. It's hard to find what you want.
And where did you get the book? Or where did Grandma get the book from?
Well, they used to go through the country and sell them, for one thing. They used to come through and sell books, and they'd come through and sell, shrubs and fruit trees and things. They traveled through the country and sell them.
How about wallpaper? How did people clean wallpaper?
Wallpaper?
Yeah.
They mixed dough, flour and water, made dough, and cleaned it that way.
Just like smeared it on the...
No, it was stiff enough. It was real stiff, and then you'd rub it over and then turn your dough so just put the dirt side in, and then you'd have to rub it up and down and have to be careful how you done it, or they'd be streaking too, it wasn't easy. But then it wasn't too long, of course, they came out of the wallpaper cleaner. It was used the same way. But people made their own.
How about windows? How would you clean windows?
Ammonia and water.
Ammonia?
What did you use? Rags or paper or to clean them?
Oh no, there was no paper towels. But you used your own towels or old cloth, or clean cloth. But that's what most people use to wash the windows. Or you even use soap and water, but you can't do as good a job. But you use a little ammonia and water. That was the first thing that we'd grab if you cut your fingers or anything, or you use turpentine. That was what they used, to heal it.
Ouchie.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Because they used to use kerosene too for sore throat.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know how strong it is, but I know I've heard of it. When we were, like I said, there wasn't all those things, and people just didn't have it, and they didn't know what to use, and they just would, one of them handed down from one generation to the other, I guess. It was what they. And my mother-in-law was German, and she came from Germany, and of course they were great for a lot of home remedies. They, I don't know why, but it seemed like they were. Maybe other nationalities were too, but I know they were. But I know they talked about using kerosene for sore throat. I suppose gargle with it. I don't know, they probably would gargle with it. For cleaning, you know what I mean? It makes the...
Well, all you used was lye and lard.
That was the only thing you made.
So it does something to the lard. It
Yeah.
must...
It makes... It gets a chemical change in the lard then that makes you see that as you're cleaning.
And the chemical, I remember the lye being very strong, because like I said, I remember you mixing it, the lye and the water, and the wooden stick you stirred it with got kind of eaten, kind of fuzzy looking after a while. Before you ate, did you melt the lard, or was it cold when you put it in?
So you melted the lard, and then of course, when they made their own lye, and the other way, you dissolved your lye in a certain part of water, and you stirred that in and kept stirring it until it thickened. And then you poured it into a container, and when it got real hard, then when you cut it in your squares, or
Felt like fudge, when it got hard, then you'd cut it into squares. Yeah, because I can remember pouring it like in a dishpan, and then you'd cut it with a butcher knife into bars like the size of...
But it's the chemical change between the lye and the lard. People, would get more like meat frying and things. Years ago, of course, especially out in the country, your pork was your main meat, and you'd always have more lard than what you could use, and so you always saved that, and about once or twice a year, you'd make soap. If you wanted, you could use a little oil of lavender or something in, if you want, for a nice odor to it. We never bothered, we just always used it like it was. Go around every so often and gather this ashes, and he'd make soap, and for every either 3 or 5, I can't remember, bushels of ashes, you'd get 1 bar of soap. You know, then he'd have his soap, and you'd get, you know, the soap. But like I said, it had to be good, clean wood ashes.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't burn papers or any garbage of any kind.
Mm.
You know, you'd have to say just the good, clean ashes.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there was a lot of it because most everybody burned wood.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in the summertime when it wasn't nice weather, why his wife would ride with him. You know, into the boiler.
You'd shave it into it?
Mm-hmm. Then you'd stir it with a wooden paddle so that it, you know, to dissolve it.
Smells clean.
I smell it. Yeah, it does. It does.
We didn't want to waste anything, so that's why I say they saved the lard that they didn't use, and then made another thing they made used to use lye for was for to make pretzels. They used that. They didn't use an awful lot of it either, you know, but I wouldn't know how much they did use, but they'd use some lye in water, and you had a certain dough that you made in these pretzels, and you put them into the boiling lye until they would float, and then you'd take them out and put them on your baking sheet with a little salt on it and brown them. So I don't know what they use today on the pretzels that they have, but that's the way they used to make them.
Oh my goodness.